Greetings to you all. It's the 3rd of December 2025 and we have one of our FSSC webinars today. I'm Colin Morgan, I'm the Market Development Director at Foundation FSSC and we're broadcasting again live from the Netherlands. Welcome to you all, and it's really exciting today. We have great guests again and I'll introduce those in a moment. Today's topic is FSSC 22000, Hygienic Transport of Food through Effective Tank Cleaning. A very technical webinar we have today, and we're going to dive straight in. And first of all, we're going to introduce Kelly Mulholland, Technical Manager, Safety and Quality at FSSC. Welcome, Kelly.
Thanks, Colin. Great to see you.
It's great to see Kelly. It's Kelly's third time with me here in the studio together and the second time this year. And we always have a very enjoyable webinar. So thank you all for coming. And dialing in from Belgrade in Serbia is Vladimir Surčinski, the Vice President and CEO of ENFIT. Welcome, Vladimir. Great to see you.
Hello, Colin. Hello, Kelly. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. There's a great contribution from you coming up today, Vladimir, so thank you very much. So if we look at today's topics then. So today's topics are, first of all, we're going to give you a quick introduction to FSSC. I should think most people attending this call today will have a good idea of FSSC. The topic, as we've already mentioned, is about the tank cleaning requirements, clause 2.5.10. Then we're going to come to Vladimir, who's going to talk to us about the analysis model, transport hygiene risk analysis model. And then we're going to have a Q&A session. We've already had a few Q&As come in. We've got those lined up in the deck. As we always say during these webinars, please let us have the questions as we go. We do our best to answer them, but we do always have a full agenda. The next thing we're going to quickly talk about is the practicalities. As always with FSSC webinars, everybody is always muted. Obviously, we're here in the studio talking with Vladimir. You can also basically, like I said, use the questions to write into us. Please, we get those direct into the desk here. You'll see me looking a bit later on down at the desk to see the questions. The webinars are always recorded, and we always distribute those afterwards. Some people don't always listen in real time, so you can enjoy this afterwards. If you're not joining us live, then we hope you enjoy the webinar later. We've done many webinars in 2025, and we're really excited about this one being our last of the year, a real core topic that a lot of you will be really interested in. So let's have a quick look at FSSC. So as we approach today, we are nearly on 40,000 certified organisations around the world. You can see the number on our public register and all the details. We're very transparent and open about those organisations that are certified to us. The big picture is FSSC 22000, FSSC 24000 are operated by us, Foundation FSSC, a non-profit organisation based in the Netherlands, but with a global footprint. Our main aim is to deliver trust and impact beyond certification for our schemes. And today we're going to hear lots more about one of the ways this can be taking place with the tank cleaning. In very short terms, we support the consumer goods industry in protecting brands and achieving targets through the ISO-based management systems. And of course, we have FSSC 22000, FSSC 24000, our development program, and our range of digital solutions as well. More of that on the next slide. And above all, an example of that is today, we are a lean and collaborative organisation, and we work with the SDGs to create a better world. And one of the reasons we've got Vladimir today is because it's evidence of our collaboration with Vladimir and his organisation. As we have a look at the FSSC summary, if you like, our purpose as a not-for-profit organisation is to provide trust and impact, and therefore to create a better world, particularly in creating great workplaces and safe food. We work for our schemes and assurance with our teams both in the Netherlands and around the world, and we also work now increasingly with capacity building and digital solutions. So all of those coming together is what we call our brand identity, and we're here to support the world with its aims around great workplaces and food safety. And today, the food safety is the main topic. So we're now going to turn to Kelly, who's going to talk us through the requirements in FSSC 22000 on clause 2, 5, 10 transport tank cleaning. Kelly, over to you, and we're looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Great, thanks Colin. It's great to be back in the studio today. It's great to have Vladimir with us. I think I am most looking forward to your part of the presentation, Vladimir, to hear all of the insights that you're going to bring to the table. And I think the organizations are really going to find the information useful. So thank you again for joining us. So to start on my side of the presentation, I'm briefly going to detail the specific scheme requirements that are in place in relating to transport tank cleaning. And these requirements are over and above the cleaning requirements included within the related PRP technical specifications. So the ones I'm going to focus on is the ones coming out of the additional requirements in Part 2 of the scheme. So this is included under additional requirement 2510D. And the first part of the requirement addresses that where an organization uses tankers for the transportation of the final product, so the product that the organization produces, then there needs to be a documented risk-based plan in place to address transport tank cleaning. So this plan is required to consider potential sources of cross-contamination, to consider the appropriate control measures, as well as the cleaning validation. And in addition to this, measures need to be in place to assess the cleanliness of the tanker at the point of reception. So when the tanker is coming in, so the empty tanker, prior to it being loaded, there needs to be specific measures in place to assess the cleanliness of these tankers. And then in relation to organizations that receive raw materials in tankers, they need to also have a supplier agreement in place addressing tanker cleaning validation, restrictions linked to the prior use, so the prior loads that was in the vehicles. And then there also needs to be applicable control measures, and those control measures need to be relevant to the product that is being transported. So that is just a very brief summary of what the scheme requirement specifically is. But now let's briefly touch on the scheme requirements guidance document. So there is a guidance document that FSSC published, specifically developed as a guideline for the food industry to provide practical information and guidance on transport tank cleaning. So this guidance document is a voluntary document and is freely available for download from our website. And once you've received a PDF copy of this presentation after the webinar, you'll be able to select the link that is currently displayed on the slide, and it will take you directly to this guidance document on our website. So in relation to this document, it provides recommendations for organizations on how to include and control transport tank cleaning within their food safety management systems. And this would include for food manufacturers using transport tankers either as part of their own business or as a service provider, as well as for transport organizations who use transport tanks within their scope of their operation and the scope of their certification. So the document focuses on transport tank cleaning for road tankers, multimodal tank containers, reusable IBC, so intermediate bulk containers, as well as railroad tank wagons. So now getting a little bit further and deeper into this guidance document and looking at the guidance that is specifically included for 2510D1 to start off with. This is guidance for where organizations need to document a risk-based plan to address transport tank cleaning. So organizations need to start by conducting a risk assessment and ensure to consider the potential sources of cross-contamination when they undertake this risk assessment. So relevant hazards need to be assessed, and this could be physical hazards, chemical, microbiological, allergenic hazards, and they need to make sure that the organization needs to make sure that they use a methodological approach when undertaking this risk assessment. Their organizations also need to consider the hazards and related risks to the organization's facility, as well as the transport provision. So they need to consider, is it internal transportation that's taking place? Is it external? Who provides the cleaning for the tankers? Is it in-house cleaning? Is an external service provider utilized for it? So these are all considerations that need to be given when undertaking this risk assessment. Then next, the organization needs to establish and document a plan to address transport tank cleaning. And if you have a look in our guidance document, as I'm not going to go through all of the guidance in today's webinar, so if you specifically look under section 6.2 of the document, you will see a section on cleaning and disinfection, which will provide you with additional guidance. So the documented risk-based plan to address transport tank cleaning needs to consider the appropriate control measures and the cleaning validation. And when establishing the control measures, the organization needs to consider the risks identified from potential sources of contamination related to those allergenic, chemical, microbiological, and physical hazards, and establish and implement controls specifically to address this. And then these controls need to be validated, and a little bit later in one of the next upcoming slides, I will briefly touch on the validation aspects a little bit further. The organization needs to determine the measures to also assess the cleanliness of the tanker prior to loading, and this may include a verification checklist or a similar document being in place and assessed against the specification that is being set for those cleaning services. So depending on the risk, this can vary from visual checks to the verification of the cleaning process data, as well as microbiological testing. And this verification would need to be done at a frequency based on risk, based on the outcome of the risk assessment that the organization has undertaken. The second part of the requirement relating to 2510D2 is applicable to organizations that receive raw materials in tankers, as I've mentioned earlier. And to commence, the organization needs to establish a supplier agreement. So to do this, the organization needs to draft a supplier agreement with the suppliers or the service providers who are providing the delivery of the raw materials in tankers. And there is, again, specific guidance included within the section on control of externally provided products, processes, and services under section 6.1 of this guidance document. So please do have a look at that. And the supplier agreement needs to address tanker cleaning validation, and the validation needs to confirm that the established cleaning protocols or methods utilized for cleaning are suitable and effective to ensure that the food safety hazards are controlled. And this can be based on microbiological testing, as well as supporting validation data provided by the cleaning agent suppliers or the cleaning service providers or the transportation service provider themselves. So that validation data can also be provided from those organizations. Then the supply agreement also needs to include the expectation for the disclosure of the prior load. So what was transported previously within the tanker, and evidence of the documented verification of cleaning between loads also needs to be in place. In addition to the guidance specifically for our additional requirement for 2510D, there's also specific guidance included within the guidance document for those Category G organizations, so transport providers who obtain Category G certification to FSSC 22000. And within the guidance document, there are specific clauses relating to ISO 22000 and the related technical specification 22002 Part 5. Again, I'm not going to go through in excessive detail during the webinar, but there are some specific points I would like to mention. So we'll start off having a look at the ISO 22000 aspects. So in relation to the actions to address risks and opportunities, potential organizational risks to consider related to transport tank cleaning include competitive market as well as economic environment risks. So it's quite common that the transport outsources the transporter, so the actual provider of the transportation, outsources the tank cleaning to a third-party supplier or service provider. And when they then offer this transportation service, it then includes tank cleaning, which they sometimes outsource. And in this case, cleaning becomes a cost element of the overall transportation price. So that is something to consider, because the transport market is also a highly price-sensitive market, and therefore so is the tank cleaning market. So price pressure could potentially increase the risk of short and poor cleaning, with a due effect then on the actual overall cleaning quality that is done. So this needs to be taken into consideration by the organization as to not jeopardize the quality of the cleaning that is being provided. And next to this, the basic principles of foodstuff hygiene are not always well known by the cleaning providers. So the organization needs to ensure that they also educate the providers that they're utilizing, or utilize a service provider who has extensive experience within it. And I think when we listen to Vladimir speak a bit later, we'll hear a lot more about that as well. Then next, in relation to people and competence, the organization needs to ensure that there is a competence within their organization regarding tank cleaning, and they need to make sure that the employees are properly trained. And this can be loading and unloading personnel, maintenance staff, cleaning personnel, and they really need to be made aware of the risks related to transport tank cleaning. Then in relation to the control of externally provided processes, products or services, which I briefly mentioned earlier, the organization needs to consider the tank cleaning in the transport and cleaning purchase conditions of the contract that they have with that applicable service provider. And these conditions need to consider, for example, what are the cleaning conditions, what are the cleaning processes, what is the expected results of the cleaning, what documentation needs to be in place. And it should also then consider things such as what is the transport tank design, what is the conditions of the vehicle, what is the maintenance schedule. So these are all things that need to be considered when establishing those cleaning purchase conditions within the contract. Cleaning stations also need to validate the effectiveness of their particular cleaning programs and prove that the agreed programs were used on the individual cleaning cases as well. Then in relation to the traceability system, cleaning process traceability needs to ensure that the actual cleaning processes that are delivered actually align with the agreed processes that have been validated, and there needs to be verification in place for this. And a cleaning certificate alone would not necessarily be recommended. Full traceability to the transport vehicle, what prior loads were transported, so what goods were transported previously, and also the cleaning records should be available. But further guidance on these topics with regards to traceability is included in the guidance document as well. I've already briefly touched on the guidance document with regards to the hazard control and validation earlier, so I'm not going to go into much detail on that section now. But in relation to verification, the organization needs to define how the specific measures and process parameters relating to the PRPs or OPRPs or CCPs need to be verified. And again, those control measures would need to have been determined as an outcome of the risk assessment that's also conducted. And some of examples of verification could include performance evaluation of the service providers that are utilized, undertaking testing, so microbiological testing, as well as internal audits. So those are just some examples that can be given. In regards to internal audits specifically, this needs to include the aspects of tank cleaning and the implemented measures that have been implemented by the organization. And the organization really needs to ensure that the internal auditor is suitably trained in the aspects of transport tank cleaning. As in order to undertake an effective audit of the process, the internal auditor needs to have a good understanding and knowledge and foundation in it themselves. And then lastly, with regards to non-conformity and corrective actions, the organization needs to ensure that documentation on non-conformities regarding improper tanker cleaning is maintained, and that actions to address those non-compliances are in place, followed up with the relevant stakeholders within a suitable period of time as well. Then when having a look at the specific guidance for the technical specification 22002 Part 5, let's start with food contact equipment. So food contact equipment is required to be designed and constructed to facilitate cleaning and disinfection. And it's important to realize that the transport tank itself, the interior, is a food contact equipment. And as such, the materials used and the design of the tank need to be taken into consideration. And I think on that point, we also delivered a webinar previously on equipment design, which is also good for organizations to go and consider. Then closely linked to food contact surfaces, the organization needs to ensure that food contact surfaces, including the hoses and the pumps, are constructed from materials designated for food use, and that the chamber itself, the tanker itself internally, has no visual impermeable damage. It needs to be free from any incrustation, any corrosion, any rust. And another point is to also consider checking the welding, ensuring that it's smooth. And this is to also ensure that the cleaning process allows and is able to reach all the necessary areas inside the tank unit to make sure that it is effectively cleaned. We've already mentioned and discussed purchase materials and services, and we also touched on loading, so I'm not going to go into further detail on that now. And I believe Vladimir will also give us some good information and insights a little bit further on in regards to this as well. We also have a specific section on cleaning and disinfection, and the conditions of the cleaning facility also need to be taken into account and considered. Things such as the water source, the treatment of the air that's used, any steam treatment, as well as many other aspects also need to be considered. And then lastly, with regards to the waste disposal, a reminder that residual waste remaining in the tank unit after transportation is also considered to be waste, and removal and destruction of that waste also needs to be managed in accordance with the scheme requirements. So please do also take that into consideration. So to sum up from my side, there's a lot. What I've mentioned to you now is only just a brief amount of detail from the guidance document. So please do take the time, go and read through the document, as it has a lot of insights. But now I'm going to hand back over to Colin to take us into the next topic. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Kelly. That was incredibly comprehensive. Really appreciate that. And we're now going to turn very quickly to Vladimir Surčinski. And as we said, the topic for Vladimir is ENFIT Transport Hygiene Risk Analysis Model. Now, we've got a lot of slides here coming up, and we're really looking forward to them. But also to let you both know, we have a lot of questions already coming in. As I would expect today, we have a very large audience, and they're really hanging on your words here as well, both of you. So over to you, Vladimir, and we look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin, very much. And thank you also for Kelly explaining all of these things that are in the guideline. I know that there are lots of questions, but there are also lots of slides. I'm very happy to talk about this topic because I'm not just the Vice President and the CEO of ENFIT Association, but I'm also FSSC 22000 lead auditor for around 10 years. So I have seen the development of all the requirements and, of course, the requirement regarding the transport. So I hope that you will enjoy on next slides, and I will be more than happy to share all the insights regarding from the results of ENFIT Transport Hygiene Risk Analysis. So ENFIT actually is International Association, non-profit association for supply chain safety. It is connecting industry, science and practice to create safer food transport. And actually, as you have seen, we are present internationally now with a lot of members coming from the food industry, from the feed industry, from the transporters, logisticians, all kind of cleaning stations, different sectors. So just to compile all of that knowledge and really to give it to the safer supply chain, especially supply chain of food. When we talk about the food supply chain, we need to mention that food supply chain, when we talk among each other, everyone just sees this last part. They see the distributive center or the secondary production where some kind of transport is going on for the packed product, and then it is transported to the retail store or the wholesale. And in many things, everyone would say, yes, but there is only one risk, and this is a risk connected with the, of course, temperature of the transported product, but in reality, there is also hygiene. The food supply chain is much more than that. It is more complex. It also includes other parts like primary productions, like productions of raw materials. And if we just take one example of production of flour, where wheat is transported from the fields and farms to the primary production of meal with silo tankers, and then from meal as flour also with silo tankers goes to the secondary production, where some kind of cookies are produced and then transported to retail store. In between all of them, there is one location that is very important for the whole supply chain of food to be functional, and these are the cleaning stations. This is often overlooked part in the supply chain, and maybe there is some source to that, which I will explain later. But why is it complex? Why the supply chain is complex? Because we can have loading of different materials in different countries, in different transporting units that are now transporting all of these materials like sunflower oil, glucose syrup, milk powder from different countries to one chocolate production, for example, in Italy. And over there you are producing chocolate, but beside that, what you have is the transport units that are unloaded, that are now dirty and needs to be cleaned, which means that dispatcher probably of these transporting companies will try to find the cleaning station that is over there, that is actually in Italy, for example, and will also try to find a location that all of these transporters are now loaded also in Italy, if they are lucky. In many cases, it would happen that they are dirty, that they are traveling to other countries, they will be washed there and maybe loaded in some neighboring countries, which means that we have some kind of transporting going on there with the dirty tanks that is not so clearly covered. Of course, in all of this movement of the transport, with all of this loading, unloading, it could happen that the transport just get potential contamination. So, for example, if this transport just is clean and load a milk cream now in Italy in one factory, this is already what we have, and what Kelly mentioned, one potential hazard over there in the transport. And this is allergen now transporting, yeah? So this milk cream goes further, it goes maybe to Austria, to the production. Now we have a transport that is empty, but it is still dirty, and it has some remains of milk. It goes to a cleaning station. If cleaning station doesn't work well, it doesn't have a proper cleaning program, this cleaning program doesn't include all parts of the transporting unit, you could have a remains of the allergen there, which could be a potential contamination for your next loaded product. Because in next loading, for example, of a barley malt, you don't have that someone will take the sample and try to test, is there maybe present allergen. Of course, a lot of companies would define that there is a forbidden previous load in order to prevent these hazards, but in many cases what we have seen, this step is just overlooked, or it is not sufficiently communicated in the evidences of cleaning. Risks in supply chain are connected to all areas. It can be connected with loading process risk, with transport unit risk, with unloading process risk, but definitely also with the cleaning process risk, where we talk about the previous loads information, cleaning procedures, cleaning station equipment, cleaning station employee training, traceability, of course, but in this case, traceability of service of cleaning, and of course, at the end, cleaning evidence and information. What is exactly a cleaning evidence and information? Hazards are similar like in our factories. So if we look at the hazards like biological, physical, chemical, radiological, allergens, they are similar like in our factories, but they can come from different root causes. They can come from the cleaning station, they can come from the employees on the cleaning station, or they can come from the loading, unloading equipment, or even from the transporting unit that is not properly designed, constructed, or that it is damaged during all of these activities. Of course, there are also other types of things that are not hazards, but are product characteristics. Sometimes there will be specific requirements from your customer that you transport a product that is halal or kosher product, which means that you have to have special type of cleaning of your transport unit to fulfill also this requirement. Of course, I told you, in ENFIT, we have a lot of members. Some of these members are also certified according to the FSSC. They are also food producers or feed producers. And when we look at all of these requirements, what they are giving to their own transport providers or cleaning service providers, they always say to the cleaning service providers, you need to have implemented HCCP in the cleaning station. But in reality, this is not done in a very good way. The reason why this is not done in a very good way is often because we look at the food safety system from door to door. We look only at our factories. We look only food safety system as from the part of receiving to the part of distributing our own product. But when we look at the cleaning stations, they are not in line with all of these processes. Why? First of all, we need to go in the Codex Alimentarius, we need to go in the legislation, we need to go in all of the standards there for the food safety, where food business operators are defined as those who are handling the food product, which means that the transporters, storage warehouses, producers are all handling with the food product. Cleaning station does not handle the food product. And that's why it is not in line with the legislation for food or with standard requirements, and they are not just food business operators, which means that they are a little bit out of the responsibility, and only responsibility that they need to follow are those given by you, given by the producer or the transporter, which means that you need to have lots of knowledge to know what to give as a requirement there. So we needed it to go a little bit beyond the food factory walls. Why we needed it that? Because when the requirement was there, when the requirement 2510 was updated, it was updated that some type of risk analysis is needed or risk assessment is needed to analyze what is going on with your transport units, with tanks who are loading your own product or who are delivering to you your raw materials. From the experience of an auditor, I know that during the audit, and minimum time for FSSC audit is 2 days or 2.5 days. And in these 2.5 days, you have to check all the requirements there from FSSC. And there is, of course, requirements 2510 and other PRPs. But time used to check this is not sufficient for you as an auditor that you can go in really details. So this THR analysis covers several criteria. These are the procedures, instructions, and rules that needs to be checked. Of course, the timing to do this THR analysis criterion is actually 2 days. So you can imagine that just as an auditor, you cannot check for 2 days just the process of transport. Yeah. And in this case, what we did, we checked for 2 days the process, which includes the procedures, instructions, and rules, all connected with the transport. Of course, this includes the purchasing procedures, contracting, specification for services, etc. Of course, we check the service traceability as one of criterions. Then how the transport is really analyzed in hazard, threats, vulnerability analysis. Then, of course, validation, verification, non-conformities. What is also needed to be included there was competencies and training programs, because we really needed to know how these competencies and training programs are covered inside of the facilities, inside of the companies, and do they also cover specific things regarding what should be checked on loading, on unloading, etc. And of course, there are 2 criteria at the end, which means that you actually go there and you check physically on site, do the inspection of loading, unloading, cleaning, also checking the cleaning evidences, etc. When we talk about THR analysis results, we always at the end have because this is done through the software solution. With the software solution, we enter all the findings during the THR analysis result, and then all the information are given later as a percentage success. So the idea actually with the percentage success is to show for each of these criteria what is the percentage success, but also to have a total score showing where the company risk assessment regarding the overall transport and transport hygiene really is. And we expect at the end that the goal is that companies arrive at a minimum of 75%, which is actually level 4, which shows then that there is a good system in place and that everything works. So in 2024, results are showed. Of course, we continue doing this in 2025, and I would like to share the result with you. Average result in 2024-25 for more than 60 companies was for a total score of level, please click, once more, for a level 2, which is a high risk. So for all of these 60 companies, average result was level 2 or a high risk, which means that a lot of problems were covered there that were not just seen previously in the systems, that were not just seen previously in the transporting processes. So we needed it really to analyze all of this, and we needed it to share all of these results. When we look at the results, what were there, one of the results showed that there are problems with loading, unloading controls, which means that not just that employees are not trained sufficiently, it means also that there are some missing parts that were not just defined in the procedures. For example, and one example is here, we have seen a transport unit that has a label sticker of GMP plus, and it was delivering the flour for the production in confectionery industry. So when we talked with the driver, when we talked with the user, we found out at the end that there is no label sticker on the side of the transport that shows only for foodstuff. And this actually gave us an input that this transport was used for animal feed. We don't know how this was washed, how this was properly controlled, but definitely in the same transport unit, the flour for use and for consumption was also transported. So this is really interesting about the labeling of the transporting units, and this also includes a pre-labeling or or removing of some labels, like in this example number 3, where labeling of some chemicals which was previously are removed and now only for foodstuff remain, which means how this transport unit was really controlled, that now it is approved for transporting of food. Maybe it's damaged inside, maybe there are some problems with it, and we need to find out that. Some other things are also procedures regarding the loading and unloading. These are the procedures that are control procedures. You have seen here on the example that we are taking some protein swab from the pipeline where actually the product will be unloaded from the transporting unit. This transport unit just arrived for the loading and it's clean. So we took a sample. This is done by internal laboratory of the company, and it showed sample that it is okay. So there are no any kind of protein remains. But then we use the boroscope tool, which has its own camera. We enter deeply in the pipeline and also in the air pipes, and we have found the remains of some previous product, also damages of these air pipes, which you just cannot test it by just taking some protein swabs. Of course, the procedure of taking protein swabs was also not done in a very good way, because always the same sampling place was used and company never had any problems. These are also some of the examples where we took samples, and these are all taken from the clean transport unit. So we have the evidences that they are clean, but at the end it is shown that there is some presence not just of the proteins, but also some oils and grease, especially in the air pipes. Other things also mentioned by Kelly are food contact materials and specifically a compressed air installations. You need to have an idea that transporting units and have a specific compressor with which you push some compressed air in order to unload your product. In that case, this means that you have a compressed air that is in contact with your product, and you need to do the risk analysis for the potential contamination coming from the air. This also means that air pipes through which the air is coming needs to be properly cleaned with the exact cleaning procedures. And in many cleaning stations, they don't have the technology to cleaning just properly. Additional thing are the filters there, and these filters are something that is not changed regularly. So we needed a modern approach. So we started using a boroscope, and here is one example just showing you how the contamination look inside of the pipeline with the remains of the condensate, but also some of the rust, which is a bad design and can contaminate the product also with the potential physical hazards. You should be aware that every time when the liquid is transported, this liquid is also filled in the transport unit to the maximum, which means that part of this product will go in the pipelines, especially in the airlines. If the valve is not closed properly or it is damaged, this product goes inside the air pipes. If it's in the air pipes and if it's not cleaned properly, this means that this product remains there, it sticks there, and becomes potential hazard for the product that is next loaded. And there is no potential how you can check that, only by visually checking, as you mainly do on a loading procedures or loading controls. Of course, some of the physical hazards could be present there, especially knowing that the transport is always moving and have their damages inside. Yeah, some of more examples of condensation, physical hazards, also not very good sealing. We can go next. And also I wanted to show you a cleaning station. So if you think that your cleaning station looks perfect, no, they are not looking perfect. There are 650 cleaning stations only in Europe. They are all different by design, by equipment they have, and also the level of hygiene that they apply. So you can imagine inside of the cleaning station having this situation with the molds, with the lots of waste, with uncontrolled oils and remains of the cleaning agents. Controls that are done after the cleaning are mainly by operator going inside or the driver just going inside, checking visually, which is not always so good. That's why we also invented a 360-degree camera, which is on your right side now, and you can see when this camera goes inside, just with the one click, we can take a photo. This is a photo from 360 degrees camera showing what cannot be seen just by looking when you go into the manhole and looking with your own eye, because this shows that there are some scratch and that there are some remains of the product that were not cleaned sufficiently. Additionally, when we talk about the evidences of cleaning, there are so many different evidences of cleaning, and these evidences, it is the question what they are showing to us. So we had some evidences of cleaning where driver just records that he performed the cleaning, but this is recording done in the GMP+. Then we have some other documents where it is written that it is cleaned only from the outside, but companies still accepted this cleaning document. Then we have also some statements where they say we have cleaned in our own cleaning station with hot water without the use of cleaning chemicals. So you can imagine this with cleaning only with hot water, but we don't know even the temperature, we don't know also the cleaning agents or nothing. And this is actually the cleaning station that is cleaning like that. You see the hoses that are drying outside. You see the washing on ground with a part of transport silo, which will be in contact with the product. And the hot temperature is 37 degrees just. Also, sealing could be a problem. Sometimes you will ask because of the food defense and food fraud to put a sealing. But in many cases, we have problems with sealing, that sealing was not done correctly, and there is a potential to open these seals even without breaking it or damaging it. Additional problem is the numbers on the seals that are not always correctly entered inside of the cleaning evidences, and this could make a problem, of course, on your potential loading or the unloading. These are some more examples where we could open without damaging the seal. One of the biggest problem there are the cleaning programs. No, they are not standardized, there are no exactly trainings, and sometimes we as users are defining the cleaning programs. Problem with the cleaning program, they need to be defined, and this is why ENFIT defined the cleaning programs depending what was a previous load. These cleaning programs are defined per steps, per time, per also temperature, which means that now idea in the background is that every time you're doing the cleaning, you are saying, okay, if you are transporting, for example, liquids with a low viscosity, you should use ENFIT P200 high cleaning program. Or else you need to define your own programs and then also ask that they are validated, which means that every time cleaning station need to fulfill and wash with this cleaning program. In our own THR analysis, we have seen that companies are asking for a specific cleaning program, but in reality, in cleaning station, this just does not happen. They do not follow every time these procedures. Of course, when we talk about the transport container suitability, there is also a need how to provide that the transport unit was checked and approved. So we have developed a special DIN 10502 inspection guideline, after which transport unit would have a special labeling there, which will say that the transport unit is now continually suitable for the period of 2 years. This is not done at this moment by anyone, and we have some transport units there that are just handling our products that is older than 25 years. And nobody checked them. Of course, security seals are something that needs to be think about, because now the whole system is just covered with the writing scripts or some data that goes inside of the cleaning evidences. But the idea is to have a digitized system that you can also track in very easy way, because you can imagine if you have like 30 loads to do in this day, and this becomes really hard for people to check all of these numbers and to compare, is it on the right place? Of course, cleaning station is something where the problem is. So we have defined also a certification process for the cleaning station, which is called HiQF. And the idea is with the HiQF that same is aligned completely with the requirements of FSSC, but also with the requirements of other standards, so that when you select the cleaning station which is certified, you can be sure that they are following the rules that is needed for you. So you don't have to have all complete knowledge about it, but cleaning station gets finally the responsibility and becomes the food business operator. Of course, this is followed by ENFIT cleaning certificates, and these ENFIT cleaning certificates are digitized and have all the data you need there about the previous load, about the program actual that was used, about, of course, procedures that were applied, and it is connected with the numbers of seals there, so that you can prevent also potential fraudulent activities with the documentation and also with the potential sabotage or contamination of the products. Okay, this is just short information what is there on the ENFIT cleaning certificate, which you can find also on our website. We can go for next slides. What I would like to focus a little bit more is validation of cleaning programs. This is something that is required, but the problem is that cleaning stations get the requirement to validate the cleaning programs, and this is what we have seen also during the THR analysis, that they don't know how to do this process of validation. That's why what we have done, we have developed the cleaning programs and also validated them. And we are giving also the structure for the validation of cleaning program. If we go to a next step, I will explain that the starting from the preparation, it means that you need to have prepared conditions. This means that equipment works well, that your controlling equipment works well, that you have a defined cleaning programs, that you have checked the temperatures, the pressures, and everything works well. So you have a preparation conditions. And after that, you start doing the cleaning. You can select how many transporting units you're going to clean. And then you need to do several check-ins like visual and sensory, microbiological testing, protein testing, and of course, recording of this data. So as you know, validation, you can do it only once, but you can for each cleaning program. And this means that you need to follow exact validation step like registration, cleaning program application, sampling with swabs, microbiological, then sampling with a clean card or a protein swabs. Then at the end, boroscope and odor inspection. And at the end, of course, control of the cleaning evidences, which packs everything there. Of course, one of the things when you are doing the validation, you need to simulate the situation that is a worst case scenario. In this case, we say that one of these situations that you can simulate is a maximum allowable time. Maximum allowable time is actually the time that passes from the cleaning of transport unit until the transport unit is loaded. And sometimes they are cleaned on Friday and they are then loaded on Monday, which means that there is 24, 48 or 72 hours before the transport unit is loaded. So you need to take the samples immediately after cleaning and on every 24 hours to confirm that your cleaning program is really validated until the time of loading. Shortly, validation limits. What you need to understand is not the same like the validation of cleaning inside of the factory, because we have a transport tank silo which is constantly moving. It changes the product viscosity. It has sometimes no regular maintenance or preventive maintenance, no control air, different cleaning procedures, different cleaning stations uses, different monitoring procedures. So you need to make controllable conditions in the cleaning stations. In the cleaning stations, they don't have a lot of food technologists or scientists. So sometimes you need to give them exactly how to do that. We have also developed a first hygiene risk management system HCCP guideline to help cleaning stations understand what they need to implement more. It is available on the website, or if you contact me, I can share it with you. And with this, we have connected all in one food supply chain that is safer. Thank you very much. You can add me on LinkedIn. And of course, sorry a little bit for the timing. My clicker didn't work. And now we can talk about all the questions there.
Thank you, Vladimir. We sorted your clicker out. We did a great job on the teamwork. And actually, you were an amazing speaker. Thank you very much indeed. All the way from Serbia, only one little technical itch on the way with the line. And you did a brilliant, brilliant job. Thank you so much. We are going to move to some questions now in the few minutes that we have left. We're going to take a question, first of all, from the audience, from Anish. And we'll direct that to you. And we'll see that up on the slide. And basically, I'll read it out anyway. It's for you, Vladimir, and it is: what steps should be used to quickly analyse that our reception control is sufficient prior to loading? So that's a question from Anish. What steps should be used to quickly analyse that our reception control is sufficient prior to loading? I think because of time, after you've answered that question, we'll give you a rest.
Yeah, thank you very much. So very quick answer is, first of all, please check, are you just doing the visual control? If you are doing just the visual control, this is not sufficient. The second thing is, if you are taking samples, check, are you always taking the samples from the same place? If you're taking always the sample from the same place, please be aware that cleaning stations are also aware of that, and they always disinfect that place after they clean the complete transport unit. Additional thing, check your cleaning evidences. What is written there, and do you really understand what is the information forwarded to you and how you can track all of this data connected with the traceability also. These are the fast steps.
Brilliant. Thank you, Vladimir. Beautifully answered. And that question was from Anish. That was arrived before the webinar today. The next question is for Kelly, and that is on the screen in front of you. Does the requirement for a cleaning certificate according to 2510 apply to each individual delivery, or can a random inspection program be applied if the supplier is approved and has documented procedures? Over to you on that one, Kelly. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Well, it depends if we're talking about the final product or the raw material in regards to our requirement. So if we are talking about an organization that's transporting their final product in tankers, then we do require that there is some form of assessment of the cleanliness of the tanker prior to actually loading, so at the point of reception of the empty tanker. So there would need to be an assessment done. Whether that is a cleaning certificate or the method that's utilized and how that is controlled will depend on the organization, depend on the risk. So for that, it would need to be in place. When it comes to the raw material that are being received in the tankers, again, this would be based on risk. It would be based on the risk of the product. It'll also need to take into consideration what products are being transported in those tankers. So it would depend on risk, but there would always need to be measures in place to control those risks. So at times you might find for a higher risk raw material that yes, you would need to have one in place for each time, but for others it might be on a frequency based on that risk.
Thank you, Kelly. We'll take one final question, which is again from Camilla, actually, and it arrived before. Before I ask the question, to let the audience know, and there are a lot of people on the webinar today, we have had a lot of questions and we will come back to you with the answers. We probably got more questions than we could possibly have time for, but we do appreciate the engagement. With that, let's go to the final question, which Kelly will answer. Here we go. So is there any guidance or template from FSSC on how to document and verify that a transport is dedicated and thus exempt from the requirement for a cleaning certificate for each delivery? Over to you, Kelly, to answer that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. So the supplier will need to provide evidence of the controls that they have in place in relation to the restrictions linked to the prior loads. If the supplier has provided evidence that the tankers are only utilized for a specific type of material, then it might not be required for each and every delivery. However, again, this needs to be based on risk. Also, designating the tanker for a specific type of material doesn't exempt the need for cleaning, and it also doesn't exempt the need for a cleaning validation. So the cleaning and validation of the cleaning is still needed, and this is irrespective of if it's only dedicated for one type of material. However, the cleaning methods used will vary. They may differ based on whether it's a designated tanker versus if it's one that's used for many different types of loads. And it would also need to take into consideration what is the actual material that is being transported.
Thank you, Kelly. We are at time, actually, so I'm going to conclude the last couple of slides and then I'll thank you both for your time today. So the final slide really is about the regional representatives. Always you can check our website for further details and get in touch, obviously, through the normal ticketing system. But if you want support and particularly market-related activity, please also speak to the market representatives around their world. Their pictures are here. And also you can go onto the website and you can see their details directly. Please get in touch. We're really happy to support you and work with you. And with that, I'm now going to conclude by saying thank you. So first of all, thank you, actually, Kelly, for coming into the studio again. It's always a pleasure to work with you here. You're a great font of technical knowledge for FSSC and really appreciate all that you do for us.
Great to be here.
And thank you. And finally, Vladimir, always grinning, actually, smiling. You did such a beautiful presentation today. Really, really fantastic. Vladimir Surčinski from ENFIT, thank you for your amazing contribution today. I'm sure the audience would really appreciated it. And with that, we would like to say thank you all for joining us for our 2025 webinars. We'll look forward to doing more in 2026. Thank you for all your support and greetings. And that's all for today. Thank you.